Welcome to the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning podcast. I am your host, Dr. Ouida McAfee, and I'm here with you in Kahoma Community College. And our guest today is Mr. Joseph McKee, our very own Mr. Joseph McKee, our financial aid director. Mr. McKee, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you, Dr. McAfee, for inviting me to the podcast. I've been waiting for you to invite me on, so this is a great opportunity, and I'm looking forward to the time that we're going to spend here with each other this morning.
Thank you. Me too, because we're talking about a very important topic. Financial aid is important to our students. It's important to our institution. And so with that being said, you are a great representative for us in this position, Mr. McKee. I want you to know that. So
thank you, Dr. McAfee.
You're welcome. Let's jump in.
Yes, ma'am.
What is financial aid?
What is financial aid? So we're going to break it down. Two words, financial and aid. So most people understand financial is money. All right. So anything financial, we're talking about dollars and cents to either receive or to pay out. But now the aid part is assistance. So when we're talking about financial aid, we're talking about finding some funds to assist us with covering the cost of attending college. And when we hear financial aid, that's how we need to be thinking in terms of helping me to pay for college. And so sometimes that definition gets lost. But at its core, financial aid is nothing more than assistance to help cover that cost of school.
Okay. So why is knowing about financial aid important to students, faculty, and staff?
All right, so financial aid, it is important that all stakeholders understand what financial aid means. You have your staff members, your administrators, your staff members that work with students. They need to understand what financial aid is for the student, but also for the institution. Your faculty and your advisors need to have an understanding of financial aid and its relationship to students' ability to receive aid as it relates to the program of study that they are pursuing. And then students and parents need to be aware of what financial aid is, because again, this is money that is designed to assist you with covering the cost of school. But you also need to understand the rules and regulations that govern financial aid. And you also need to know how to access financial aid. And so all stakeholders need to know, because at the end of the day, a student's ability to attend a college or university is pretty much dependent on their ability to be able to afford it. And we know most of our students can't afford to come out of their pockets with the funds necessary to pay for school. So they need some assistance. And the federal government has propped up financial aid as a way for students to access some funds to help them cover the rising cost of attending college.
Okay, so you talk about accessing financial aid. How do we access financial aid, students?
All right, so the federal application for student aid, we know it is FAFSA. That is the number one space that students need to travel to get access to federal aid. And federal aid is your Pell Grant, your work study, your SEOG, which is Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, and even your student loans. So you can't get access to any of those things if you don't complete your FAFSA application. And then you have your states that offer aid as well. So Mississippi offers some state aid programs that student can't access unless they complete the federal application. And then you have some scholarships that require students to complete that FAFSA. So your number one step is to complete the FAFSA, because it unlocks opportunities for additional aid. And so for people to get access to the FAFSA, they simply need to travel to studentaid.gov. And that's studentaid.gov, and that's going to bring you right to the homepage for completing that FAFSA.
Wow, that's really helpful, because I'm sure many of us didn't realize how many things fall under the umbrella of financial aid.
Yes.
And so give us some myths or some misconceptions, like financial aid. I've heard some parents say, I make too much money, so I'm not going to fill it out.
So that's great. A great point to bring up. So some people exclude yourself from the opportunity to get scholarships and other aid if you don't complete the FAFSA. So in the past, if you came from a family that was quote unquote well off and you made a certain amount of money, there's a possibility that you don't qualify for Pell Grant. But it doesn't mean you may not qualify because the income is too high, but you never know what you are qualified for if you don't complete the application. So just because you don't qualify for federal Pell, you may not qualify for Pell, but those schools that participate in student loans, you may qualify for the student loans. So you still need to complete that FAFSA. The other thing is this, a lot of institutional scholarships. I know here at Coahoma, institutional scholarship students are required to complete a FAFSA. So you may be eligible for some institutional scholarships, but if you don't complete the FAFSA, guess what? You can't get access to them. And so it's really beneficial that everybody completes that FAFSA so you'll know where you stand.
Excellent. So what
So
about,
yeah, that's one myth, that because I make too much money, I simply don't qualify for anything. Another myth that we see, financial aid, some people assume that all aid is supposed to go in their pocket. Remember, at the beginning, we talked about financial aid, and it is a vehicle for assistance. So parents and students have to understand that the aid that comes into the institution is dispersed to their account to cover the cost of attendance. And if anything remains, then you could get a possible refund. But the ultimate goal is to use aid to get you down to a zero balance or as close to zero balance as possible. And I need people to grasp a hold of that. We're trying to reduce how much money you possibly have to come out of pocket with the scholar, for covering your costs. So every student is different. Every student doesn't qualify for the same amount of aid, even though you and another student may come from similar backgrounds. It's dependent upon the situation in your household that's going to determine how much aid you're eligible for. And then the courses that you are enrolled in is going to determine how much aid you're actually eligible to receive. So aid isn't designed to go in your pocket. Some students receive refunds, some students don't, but at its core, it's designed to get you to that zero balance or as close as possible.
okay, so you also mentioned, I'll back up a little bit.
Okay.
About the program of study. What does the program of study have to do with financial aid?
All right, so your aid is dependent upon eligible hours enrolled. So you can only receive aid if you're pursuing a degree. All right, so or some sort of certificate that leads towards a degree. If that's the case, there are certain courses that are prescribed in your program of study. The federal government says you're only going to receive aid for courses that lead to that degree. All right, so let's say you're taking, so for full Pell, and full Pell eligibility doesn't mean that you'll get the maximum Pell. It just means that that's all the Pell that you qualify for. So a student that qualifies for Pell, if they're taking 15 hours, and if 12 of those hours are in their program of study, you're going to receive Pell for those 12 hours. If only 9 hours are in the program of study, you're only going to receive Pell or financial aid for those 9 hours. So you will never receive any federal aid as it relates to Pell Grant and things of that nature for any courses outside of the program of study that don't fall within hours 1 through 12. So this is why it's important that students, parents, advisors, everybody that's involved in the registration and scheduling of student courses are aware of those program of studies, aware of the courses that should be taken and things of that nature, so we can ensure that students are receiving all aid that's eligible for them.
Oh, that's really good advice. So where do students find their program of study?
So the catalog, I know here at Coahoma, you can go on the website and you can access the catalog for your program of study. Inside of your student portal, most of the time, students have a document that shows them which courses they're supposed to take. You can also access those program of studies via your advisor or your counselor. So there are multiple ways to access that program of study. And I always encourage students and parents to keep that program of study close by. Track your progress. Yes, advisors are going to be tracking your progress, but as the student and as the parent of that student, it's important that you track your progress as well, because the financial aid that is utilized is charged to you. So no advisor, no instructor, no one else is charged with that financial aid that's attached to your Social Security number. So you got to make sure that you are doing your due diligence to ensure that you're enrolled in the right courses so you can get that aid that has been, awarded to you.
This is really good information, Mr. McKee. I hope that our viewers will watch this once and watch it twice and share it, because it's
Yes.
really good information that's going to help our students to get to meet the academic goals that they came here for.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So I understand there have been some changes in financial aid. Can you get us up to date?
Yes, there have been some changes, and the rollout has kind of it's been a little bumpy road, but we can expect that with changes. And these changes were designed to make that financial aid application a little bit easier for the student and the parent to complete. So there was a reduction in the number of questions and things of that nature. So it's supposed to be an easier process. Now it's twofold. The student has a part they have to complete, and then they have to send an invitation to their parent or parents. And notice I say to the parent or parents, depending on their circumstances. Everybody has to have what they call an FSA ID. That's a federal student aid ID that is attached to an individual's Social Security number. And all of that information is run through databases. And so now, student does a part, parents are contributors, and they both complete individual pieces to complete that application. Once both parties complete their application, and the parents have to give the consent for the FAFSA to pull their information from the IRS. So once that consent is given, the application is then processed and is completed. And then student aid offices across colleges and universities are able to see applications at that point. There was a time where we could assist the student in our office if they had an incomplete FAFSA. Those days are over. So the only way we can work with a student's application is if it has been completed. And I think there's a 45-day window. If there's no activity on that application, it's deleted, and now you have to start all over. So the process has been streamlined. So soon as parents and students enter their information, their socials are going to be run across databases. It's going to pull in tax information and all of that stuff. So now is at that point that financial aid officers can start awarding students and packaging and awarding. Now, again, with this new process, there have been some hiccups. So offices are just now starting to get some files in, but there's still some problems with this new process. So it's going to be a bumpy road this first time around with this new FAFSA, but it is important that both students and parents get involved and complete that FAFSA. So when school rolls around in the fall, they're ready to go. They know how much aid they're possibly getting, and they can make an informed decision on how they're going to pursue their degree, and if they need to switch schools, because they may find out they only qualify for a certain amount of aid. And regardless of where you go, Pell Grant is the same. So there's a maximum amount of Pell that a student can receive regardless of the institution, regardless of their cost of attendance. So doing this FAFSA helps parents and students make informed decisions. But those are some of the new changes. And there are some others, but those are a little more technical. And then that's when students and parents start having a discussion with the offices of financial aid at the institution they'll be attending.
Okay, so students who are graduating from high school, or our adult students, well, students who are graduating from high school this May, in the next couple of months, and then our adult students who are returning for the fall in August. When should they complete the FAFSA?
All right, so I'll deal with the returning students for the fall, and then I'll deal with the high school students second. So students that are returning for the fall, they actually can go in now. and start doing their applications. And understand they really need to pay attention. There are videos on YouTube, there are videos on the student aid website that can help walk them through completing this new FAFSA, this new version of it. But they really need to make sure that they're completing that FAFSA and doing it and submitting it with as accurate of information as possible. Because right now, if they complete it, they're not able to go in and make corrections. Remember, I told you there's still some hiccups going on with the system, so they can't make those corrections just yet. So, but I still encourage them to go ahead and get the application done because they already have FSAIDs and their parents have FSAID. Now, I do need to add this little nugget. Returning students have been able to, in the past, if their parents did not have that FSAID, we've been able to download a document and they can sign it manually. That is no longer the case. Everybody, student and parent or parents, have to have an FSAID because they're running everybody's social against those different databases. So we can't even do manual signatures anymore. Everything has to be done. They have to verify those IDs. So I encourage returning students to get started now. If their parents don't have the FSAID, they need to go ahead and create one for their parents because it may take 1 to 3 days for those parents' social to be verified, and then they can complete their part. So returning students really can go ahead and get started now. High school students, if they are planning to attend summer school, they need to complete the 23-24 financial aid application. So not the new version, they need to complete the one for this year because that FAFSA covers summer school. It's a part of this year, this academic year. So high school students that are going to college this summer need to complete the 23-24 FAFSA. Then they'll need to complete the 24-25 FAFSA for school that starts in August. Now, the difference is this, the 23-24 is dependent on 21 tax information. So parents will use their 2021 tax information for the 23-24 FAFSA. For the 24-25 FAFSA, it will pull in their 22 tax information. So I encourage everybody to go ahead and get started now because schools have deadlines and things of that nature as it relates to packaging students and awarding them scholarships.
Again, really good information. So did I understand you to say, Ms. McKee, that you could use FAFSA to attend summer school?
Yes, yes, you can. A brand new student out of high school can use FAFSA to cover their costs of attending summer school as long as there's those courses, if they've declared a major and those courses are in their program of study. So they have access to their FAFSA for the summer. Returning students also have access to use their Pell Grant to access Pell for the summer. So if they've been in school in the fall and the spring, they can use what they call year-round Pell to get access to Pell for the summer. There are a few caveats for students that are currently in school and want to access Pell for the summer. Number one, a student that received full Pell in the fall and used all of their Pell they were awarded in the fall and the spring, those students have been deemed to use 100% of their Pell. They are required to take at least 6 hours to access that Pell in the summer. All right, and that's for this summer. This is the final summer for that requirement. It's going to be different next summer.
Okay.
But if you're in school now and you got Pell and you use all of the Pell you were awarded in the fall and you use all of the Pell you were awarded in the spring, you are required to take 6 hours. If you are a returning student and you did not utilize all of your Pell you did not utilize 100% Pell that you were awarded between the fall and the spring, then you can come to summer school. You're not required to take that 6 hours because you still have access to some Pell from the previous semester. But so the people that are returning, you got to make sure if you received 100% of your Pell, just know in the summer you have to take 6 hours. Anybody else, you're not required to take those 6 hours. And if you're coming out of high school, you can take as many hours as you want. But now going forward, after for the 24-25 year, a student can go to summer school and take 1 hour and they'll receive Pell for that 1 hour.
Okay. Okay, so is there a way that a student can lose their Pell?
Yes. If you don't do your work, if you don't do work and you're not making what they call satisfactory academic progress, you can lose access to your federal aid. Now, what does that simply mean? Satisfactory academic progress without getting too technical. You have to be successfully completing courses in your program of study at a particular pace. So, just an example, if you take 0 to 16 hours, you need to be completing at least, and I'm just throwing a number out there, it may be 50%. As a matter of fact, let me pull this up real quick, and I'm going to give you an accurate number as it relates to that SAP.
Well, I really appreciate it, Mr. McKee, because we want our students to be successful.
Yes, ma'am. We definitely want them to be successful. We don't want them to have anything that stops them from getting aid. Let's see. Nope. All right, here we go.
Be-
So for a student that's attempting 9 to 16 hours,
Mhm.
all right, you come in as a freshman and you need to successfully complete at least 50% of those hours and have a 1.5 GPA. All right.
Okay.
If you take 16 hours, you need to earn an A, B, or C in at least 50% of those hours. So
Okay.
that's 8 hours you need to be successful. And you need to earn a 1.5 GPA with that. So A, B, C, or D. All right. If you don't, now you're pushing towards a way where you can possibly end up on probation, which you can get a warning, or then you get to the prospect of your aid being suspended.
Mhm.
So this is why it's important when students are enrolling in courses, they're putting forth the maximum effort to be successful. So you have to pass a certain number of courses, and then you have to have a GPA, a certain GPA. If you get to the point where you're not on pace, you're not satisfying one of those requirements, either the successful completion percentage or the GPA, you're now in jeopardy of having your aid suspended. And once your aid is suspended, you can't get access to Pell, work study, FSEOG, student loan. In some instances, state aid as well. You can't get access to any of that unless you do one or two things. You can submit an appeal, or you can pay for your courses until you get up and meet those standards. All right. So if you submit an appeal, there are certain things that have to be in there. You have to provide a reason and validation for why your academic performance wasn't what it needed to be during that time period. And then you have to submit supporting documentation. So these are regulations. You have to tell us why. You have to tell us what you're going to do differently that's going to change your circumstances. And then you have to send documentation to support what happened during that time period. Now, once that appeal is submitted, it'll be reviewed. And this is just a general overview. It's reviewed, and it may be determined that you have a pathway towards successfully completing a program of study, and your appeal may be approved with a plan, or it may be shown that there's no possible pathway for you to be successful and your appeal can be denied. At that point, you're responsible for paying for school. So that's if you go the appeal route. If you go the other route where you simply pay for school until you get yourself back, now you're looking at taking classes and covering this cost out of your pocket until you get to the space where your aid can be reinstated.
So we're talking with Mr. Joseph McKee, our financial aid director here at Coahoma Community College, giving us some great information. What are your final thoughts for our viewers?
Financial aid is available to assist. So take advantage of it, complete the applications, look for scholarships, do everything you can to reduce the amount that is going to cost you to attend school. understand the rules that govern financial aid. I'm not saying become an expert, but there's all type of information on the student aid website and even through your offices of financial aid. Take the time, parents and students, to review this information so you can make an informed decision. I also encourage faculty, staff, and other individuals that work at institutions to have some background knowledge of financial aid or be able to access someone that has that background knowledge. Because it's important, because we all interact with those students. And if we're assisting them with doing schedules, then we need to make sure that they understand these are the courses you need to take. This is why you need to take them, because financial aid is covering the cost. So we don't want to put students in a place where they're not receiving all the aid that's available to them. The third thing that I would say is this: the cost of attending school. Financial aid needs to be a part of your financial game plan when you come to school, because you have tuition, you have meals, you have housing, you have your books, you have supplies, and then you have miscellaneous expenses. Most people don't have the income to pay for all of those things out of pocket. So if that's the case, completing the financial aid application is going to put you in a space where you can complete it. Somebody can determine how much you're supposed to be awarded. And now if you have to come out of pocket, and if you're trying to decide what's the best school for your student, now you can make an informed decision to know how far your aid will go. You know, at Kahoma, we only do Pell Grants, work study, and FSEOG. So we don't do the student loan program here. So when you're making that decision, just know that this is the amount of aid that I can be awarded to attend Kahoma. And if you're comparing it against another school, you're looking at now, instead of just Pell Grant, you may have access to additional aid in the form of student loans. But you need to understand what that is so you can make an informed decision on how much loans you need to receive. So building in financial aid as a part of your game plan is important. Building in scholarships as a part of your financial aid game plan is important. So take advantage of every opportunity to access funds to pay for school.
Excellent. I just want to leave and wrap up with one more question.
Okay.
Question, Mr. McKee, because this has been so informational and helpful for us. What about attendance? Can you stress to our students the importance of attendance?
All right, so you need to be attending your classes, all right? Aid is awarded also based on you being in your courses. So if you register for courses and on the front end, it's determined that you're eligible to receive aid for 12 hours. But if you end up not attending those courses and you no-show, you're not going to receive aid for those 12 hours. You're only going to receive aid for the amount for the hours that you are enrolled in. The other part to that is if you withdraw or withdraw from a course before a certain period of time, then financial aid officers may have to return some of the aid that you were awarded. And it could be that you may have already been awarded aid and received refunds or things of that nature. And if that aid has to be returned, then the student may be looking at possibly having to repay that money back. So it's important to be in class, participating in class, so you can maintain the aid that has been awarded to you.
Okay. All right, there we have it from Mr. Joseph McKee. Thank you so much for being here with us, Mr. McKee, and we'll see you again.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, Dr. McAfee. I enjoyed this.
Me too.